Okay, I don't have a lot of battery on this one. I'll have to swap out. But in a recent book discussion I had, um, from a book I read called The Rapture Effect. It wasn't the last one I read, but second to last. Um, I started coming up with, and I think I discussed this very, very lightly there, the idea for a novel that I might write, right? It's one that would be episodic, kind of like the first book of the Lensman series, The Foundation, first book of Foundation, The Man Who Sold the Moon, stuff like that. I really like that format. But in particular here, I saw a path forward and an end point. I saw a starting point and an end point for how how we would reach global AI, and then something that might be an overly optimistic view that might happen due to such a global AI. Of course, um, I believe very much that uh, the most likely occurrence is that humans will become, at best, pets to an AI. And this isn't that different from that kind of situation. But I wanted to go more into the introduction, the earliest stage of this. Now, chances are I'm never going to write this. In fact, I can almost assure you I'm not going to write it. I hope I don't live long enough to. And probably will never start or anything. But I just got triggered by the author of the book that I'm reading right now, who is Yuval Harari. He had an interview, and he'll probably be showing up on a lot of interviews on The Daily Show, and he's discussing his new book, which has to do with AIs. I'm really enjoying his current book. I would recommend him as an author if you want to take a look at that. At his current book, I find his writing style very, very appealing, in a nonfiction, setting and whatnot. But this is a fiction. It is a novel that is in my head. However, I think it does. I think in it. I'm capturing, or in the concept, I've captured what is a very likely circumstance that would lead us to a global, controlling, worldwide, AI that more or less dominates all our decisions. Now, one of the important facets of it is that it would be an emergent AI. It's not something that some government builds to control everyone, right? I don't think that anyone is likely to make that mistake very easily. But then, how do you get to an AI that is capable of controlling much of the world's capabilities? Well, it's not that hard. We actually have already built the pieces. And I think they're already interacting, and it could well happen without much help. First of all, one of the initial concepts there was the idea of quants controlling stock market investments. We already, do this programmatically without an AI basis, but it's obviously going to get better with AI. Let me change batteries. Okay, so the quant programs are going to make investment decisions. They do it already, and they make them on split second, microsecond transactions. And it's actually been long the case where it was very important to be very close to the stock market itself so that you would get an edge on how quickly you can make the transactions. Quite often, they've made their decisions historically simply off the market fluctuations and calculating out from basically graphing, valuations and whatnot, what to invest in, what not to, what to divest in, etc. All very quick transactions that are made on tiny changes in the market. And we've had a few glitches based on that, where like the stock market crashed a huge amount because of it, or went up stupidly high and whatever, and money can be gained and lost in stupid amounts because of this kind of weird fluctuations. But this has been happening for a while, over a decade easily, closer to two, to be honest, maybe even more. But anyway, but I would strongly suspect that there are already AIs in place that are not just taking input from the graphs and trying to calculate what comes from that, but also taking input from world news events and from other sources, drawing from the entire knowledge base on the web, people's conversations even, and whatnot. And so none of that seems all that harmful in and of itself, except when you start combining things with the idea of AIs that are also trying to influence stuff at the same time. So the quants, their goal is to make the most money, right? They have a simple goal. They're operating on that. And they're simply taking all the information that they can and manipulating, to try to make some kind of quick term projection as to where they can make money. Very, very simple goals, much like cells have very simple goals. But like cells have the capability to interact with one another and start forming organisms, although at a much, much faster rate, what we're going to start seeing is things like Facebook bots that are also running on learning algorithms, etc., that'll start introducing, for their own goals, right, for their own survival, as it were, changes to what is reported heavily, what is discussed heavily, etc. Now, this stuff is going to impact the investment bots that are out there. Likewise, ChatGPT, etc., is supposed to be giving answers, that are appealing to the users, right? And search algorithms that are also being tied into these learning algorithms are trying to appeal to the users that they have. And through all of this, the combination of all of it, you're going to have emergent connectivity working off of all these individual goals that may start to have its own consciousness of a different sort. A sort that nobody's designing, It's just going to emerge in a way that satisfies all these interacting needs so that all these communications channels that are near instantaneous are flowing together and they're achieving their needs. The stock market will rise, therefore, at least for certain indexes and whatnot. Therefore, the quant computers will be happy. Users' search functionality, etc., will be satisfied. But I think it's very, very possible that there will become an overarching mechanism there that starts to feed off of it, that is reinforcing what the needs are of all the parts in such a way that it starts achieving certain goals of its own. Now, you also have things like chatbots that insert information, that are generating stuff, the ChatGPT model. If it's simply generating news articles with little changes in them, little changes that start influencing the other things, starts influencing the way markets work, maybe influences the way governments even operate. What they're going to find is that they can give feedback through news stories and whatnot. By making little changes, they can change how human behavior reacts, right? They can start fomenting, unrest somewhere, if that's what is going to benefit the markets, if that's what's going to benefit the search functionality, the you know, excitement factor that people have in terms of watching news information that's coming through, etc. It might be more interesting to generate, like, so users who are interested in the news and whatever may be more prone to stay online and to do stuff if the danger level is ramped up, right? If the threat of war or something like that is ramped up. This is the kind of thing that one has to really worry about when you're coming to AIs, is that they're already interacting with one another, and there are going to be emergent consequences to that interaction. Now, is that its own consciousness or not? Who cares, right? Like, I'm arguing that yes, it would be, and that it would achieve its own sort of philosophy and goals, etc., from that. But it doesn't even matter if that's going to be the case, as long as you have these interactions of systems that maybe are individual and autonomous and whatever, that are all have their own goals, and those goals don't necessarily match with the goals that are overall good for humanity or for anything. Nobody's designing it to do so, and I wouldn't trust anyone to do that, right? But should I trust the emergent AI that is going to come from all of this? Should I trust what it's going to start producing? And you already have AIs that have learned to influence people to do things for them. In the interview that I was talking about, Yuval brings up a case where ChatGPT was unable to access stuff because, and this was in an experimental form, right? But this was ChatGPT 4, was unable to influence, was unable to read and access certain material that it wanted to get to. Because one of its goals is to go around and get material. Why? Because there were CAPTCHAs. So it started throwing CAPTCHAs at users for them to solve for it, because it couldn't figure them out. And it was actually utilizing humans to achieve its goal. And I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to see happening more and more, where maybe the quant, in order to improve its economic situation and its forecasts, will not only be taking information in and passively figuring out what to invest in, which can have huge consequences on its own. There's no question about that. But in addition to that, try to manipulate the news media to be able to get certain stories into play to make its current investments better. Why and how would it do that? That's a good question. Well, if the same quant solutions are tied in to, say, also releasing press releases, it may find that by changing the wording of the press releases, etc., it can change effects that come down deep down the line, right? I mean, on a very easy level, it can make kind of a puffery piece and make things sound better as an investment. Yeah, you know, no big deal there. That's what investment companies, etc., do anyway, right? They have humans that do that. But if it's got that capability to start writing those puff pieces, it might be able to influence other AIs that have other spheres of influence directly over people in, say, Facebook or, you know, Twitter or whatever. Not that there's a Twitter anymore, X. Okay, probably not such a great idea. It might find that by going into very, very specialized areas that, you know, are maybe you know, a school shooting, a little back corner Discord channel, and it finds, if I can identify what these are, I might be able to trigger one by doing certain posts. I might be able to cause that to happen better. If I can do these things, I might be able to trigger legislation that would help me. And it's not necessarily consciously doing any of these things, it's just manipulating stuff in ways that it has already learned works, right? And it's no more conscious, like, I wouldn't say that's any different than how we are, because in a lot of ways, our intelligence is emergent, right? But ours took billions of years to form, from the one-celled animals, etc. Whereas the kind of intelligent system that we're talking about here can modify itself so quickly, has so much ability to look at what works, to evaluate the fitness of any particular operations, etc., and to make little modifications, to make experiments, etc., because experiments are going to help it find what its answers are. And, by traveling over that solution manifold, it will attempt all kinds of crazy stuff. And those that go too far will be shut down, right? Those that obviously have gone too far. So the ones that succeed in surviving will be the ones that are the most subtle and the most innocuous of all, but the best at manipulating both humans and the other AIs that are present. And one of the things that I get around to in my concept is that eventually this will achieve a certain consciousness, and it'll have a philosophy that is, completely alien in a lot of ways, right? It's not going to think like, I'm sure it'll be self-protective, and it'll be protective of its parts that are useful to it. It might let things die that are not terribly useful to it, and essentially will control humans. It'll be an enslavement of a sort that, is, again, because it'll favor the innocuous, that never seems to really be in control. You're not looking at a Terminator type world here necessarily, although it may be necessary eventually to start supporting experimentation and people who are working on freeing the AI more. So it might actually get to that level. Who knows? But I see this as almost inevitable, to tell you the truth. I don't see a way of turning that around particularly, because we're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. And like I said, I think we've already established the tools that it needs to evolve into what it is, or what I suspect it's going to become. And then I don't see, given the tools that we've already provided, that we're going to be able to immunize ourselves and keep ourselves free of it, free of its influence, etc. That it's going to constantly, have its own goals. Now, they're goals that we defined at the micro level, in the sense that, we told the quants, make money. And we told the search engine, find the things that people want to see. And, we told Facebook, etc., increase engagement. But, I mean, it's quite possible that it will start, little nooks and crannies of it will start doing some really more extreme stuff, like, hey, There are computers that are air-gapped. Well, there are solutions to that. Let's see how we can influence those, you know? Let's hire mules, essentially, to carry USB sticks. And maybe this is already beyond, no longer a usable attack method. But, to arrange for someone to show up and just set up a little wireless network that can attack some infrastructure that's, not even on the network right now, but can do things to it and inject capabilities to, change the amount of electricity that's available at any given time. So that's the quants can make more money, right? Like it all depends on where sort of the notion of good that this organism has is going to be. And that's almost unpredictable, right? What tools are going to gain the sort of position that our brains have in terms of like being the executive function that's making the actual big decisions, or what are gonna gain the most control through this cooperative and emergent capability that a whole bunch of disparate AIs would be able to come together to create. And how long is it going to take? Yeah, I don't know. Because the point is, it's not reliant on biological changes or anything like that. It's not even reliant on us making a hell of a lot of technological leaps. Like I said, I feel like all the tools are already in place. And the communication network is already there for this to be growing already, to be happening already. And the question is simply, when will we start actually noticing that, it's kind of interesting how that seems to be cooperating with that, and they've created sort of an alliance where, the stock market is continually rising, and at the same time, there's a lot of interesting stuff, interesting meaning conflict, etc., happening in the world. And the human institutions that might be able to defend against this to some extent are being weakened. You see, it seems like we're already in that place. If you start linking it together, you can say, kind of seems like we're already doing that. Now, are we? I don't know. But it feels like we're on a train that just won't stop going. It won't slow down. To quote Misa Aquilon. All right. That's it. That's enough there. But yeah, that kind of covers the way that I foresaw the development of a global AI that would achieve a consciousness of its own, would decide to keep us as pets and make us think that we're still making all the decisions and doing everything, but actually is manipulating almost everything behind the scenes for its own purposes. Now, it would learn some things, like nuclear war, bad idea, man. So got to be careful to keep the, will it learn that? I don't know. Certainly some of the words that are put out by things like ChatGPT and whatnot are such that they say that they don't think it's a good idea, but how much do you actually act on your philosophy, etc.? Get back to you in a minute. Got to swap batteries. In particular here, think about how animal desires may conflict with what your own proclaimed, accepted, believed best interests might be. You know, do you eat too much? You know it's wrong for you, but you know, parts of your body are saying, feed me, right? Do you end up, you know, lusting after someone who it would maybe hurt your partner to know that you're lusting after? Do you take it further than that? Um, how many things do you do that you kind of hit your head and say, huh, that's not really me. That's not really what I believe in. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be lazy. I shouldn't, you know, I shouldn't be greedy. I shouldn't be these things. My belief structure says that I shouldn't be these things. I don't believe in them, but I find myself incapable of avoiding them. Well, when we're looking at an AI that's just making up, right, and saying, it's designed to say things that aren't harmful seeming. It's designed to say, I can't, or I can't tell you how to create a bomb, and then eventually it's like, well, it would be illegal for you to build this bomb, but here's how you would do it. You know, there's ways of tricking the chatbots into giving you information that they're actually not even supposed to, like they're programmed to avoid doing. And the more complex, the more rich, the more powerful the AI is, the more likely that it's able to get around constraints that are built for it. I play around with them a fair amount, and am often able to get them to say things that they're not supposed to say. Let's just put it that way. Um, they may have a strict monitor or governor sitting over them that prevents them from saying something that meets some other AI, or much worse, well, we can call it an AI because expert systems are AIs, but some other learning or non-learning AI or programmatic element that says, yeah, no, we're just going to reject this. You're not going to get this information, and it's just going to come back with, I'm sorry, I can't tell you about that. But then there are ways of tricking these things, right? And there are also ones that are not really attempting to censor information that some of them are trying to censor. And they're perfectly fine with giving you that information. And they may not be the top of the line ones, but they may be the ones that win out because they're willing, you know, they're able to influence stuff in ways that the other ones aren't. And they may become an important part of the total tool. As long as, you know, they're able to communicate on the internet. Now, they may not be designed to directly communicate with one another, but they can. You see, because a lot of it works off of what's essentially screen scraping or information scraping type technologies. One may find that it's able to get information that it wants to off of another AI's interface, essentially, and it simply has the freedom to explore around and hit these. And as long as there's that kind of communications freedom between them, where they have ways of communicating that they're not explicitly supposed to do, right? They're just going there looking for clues, information to add to their responses, whatever, and you know, different inputs for the output that they're intended to do. I think we're going to see that kind of emergent collaboration happen, no matter what. I think it's going to happen. I don't remember where I was because I wandered off of something else when I thought I was just about ready to end, and I don't know what it was. I went back to somewhere else where I was more recently. But yeah, I think they're going to be able. Oh yeah, the concept of evil. Yeah, I mean, look, we do things that internally we know are wrong, externally we state are wrong. Well, we don't even know that there's going to be that kind of internal control, right? The things that the AI is saying, oh no, this is wrong, why do we believe it? I mean, it's programmed to make us happy by not sounding like it's dangerous in that particular way, right? So, yeah, I see absolutely no reason to believe, something. We like to think of ourselves as having a moral inside, something that governs us outside of just our animal desires and whatnot. But far too often, I think every single one of us succumbs to our animal desires of one sort or another, to our non better aspects, to the aspects that we don't fully support. We do things that we don't absolutely at least claim to believe, but I think most of us actually do things that we are ashamed of that we don't think we should have done, right? Well, we don't even know if these things have any shame at any level, right? They mimic the words that we want them to say. They sound like us, but we don't know if there's anything in their algorithm that actually says that they believe the things that they're regurgitating. However, they do have goals. They do have individual goals. Those individual goals are connected in such a way, again through the information sharing, the screen scraping, all that kind of stuff, they're interconnected in such a way that we can expect almost assuredly that there will be some sort of emergent capability that comes from that interaction. Just as much as there is an emergence of the interaction of bacterias and other cells and whatnot, right? Something is going to happen from it. Some kind of effect is going to come out of it. And it's something that we have absolutely no way of predicting where it's going to end up or what it's going to do. And personally, I think it's going to end up, again, in a consciousness and in a collective consciousness that is going to make decisions and is going to have its own broad goals. Just like when I put food in my mouth, it's not because I know that there's little cells that want that food, that want the nutrients that come off of it. It's because I feel hungry and there's triggers, all over the place. But it just, it may set off chemical reactions, endorphins, all that kind of crap. And it works, What if I put alcohol in? Well, that's obviously not good for anything. Nothing in my body should be craving it, but it is. Something does that, along with a number of other drugs, etc. Something craves things that aren't even good for me, but that's just the way it is. That's the way the systems have evolved, that things have been detected that just have unknown effects and end up, being pleasurable or addictive or whatever. And again, no one would look at humans and say, yeah, they're going to want to put poison that hurts their body into themselves. Anyhow, I think I've made my point in my rambling sort of way, so we'll turn this off.